Broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York, Solutions Review is on location at MobileIron Live 2019. Brought to you by MobileIron.
It's Doug Atkinson here at MobileIron Live 2019 in Brooklyn, New York, and we are joined by Dan Roman from Verizon Enterprise Mobile Security team, and you are really kind of working with large companies dealing with the amazing amount of threats, and what we're hearing a lot throughout this event is about the threats. And Verizon has actually come out with a report that dives very much into those threats. Can you speak a little bit about what the enterprise is faced with these days, because it's shocking?
Yeah, absolutely. No, happy to be here. Great event so far. Enterprise, especially the large enterprise organizations globally, the mobile environment today has always been a challenge. I think it continues to grow and be a more persistent challenge today, especially at scale. A lot of the organizations at scale with so much and so diverse of an environment. According to our 2019 Mobile Security Index that we published, we just see an influx of threat, right? We see some thought leadership around where threat is going, but also that historical information of what threat has happened in mobile. It's very different from kind of the traditional environment that you would see, but at the same perspective, a lot of the same core competencies are there. So organizations really have to have a pretty good understanding of what their current environment is. One of the biggest things we talk all the time about is visibility, and having visibility at an enterprise perspective, critically important. Because if you can't understand your devices, it's very, very hard to quantify risk, and from an enterprise perspective, understand where you need to make investment and funds.
Well, and I think it's interesting that we have so many layers that are addressing the problem, from the carrier level with Verizon to the solution provider level down to, within the enterprise in the real network level, I guess.
Yeah.
And it requires that because there are so many areas of vulnerability, and I know you guys are certainly vigilant with regard to the actual, larger network level.
Yeah, we look at it a couple of different ways, but the layered approach that has really resonated well when we're consulting with clients is to look at it in 4 perspectives. Number 1, looking at the physical device. There's some concerns from a device perspective that some great OS manufacturers, along with SIM card manufacturers, and us as a network provider, help solve for and help harden an endpoint at a physical layer. Obviously the network itself, making sure the network is secure. You look at Verizon's 4G, 5G, and other networks, we stand behind that. We're really proud of the network that we provide, and our clients give us that. But also additionally from an application and content layer. I think that's really a big trend that you're seeing today. Understanding the applications that may be on a device, especially in a more non-traditional device like a cell phone in an enterprise environment, right? But also the content that's flowing through a device as well, right? So it's not your traditional LAN or your traditional environment that you would see. It's really a whole different way of communicating data, right? And information and critical information, but also maybe some personal information as well too. Right. And it's really that layered approach. If you can look at it from a stack perspective and you get down to that content layer, is where you really see some positive momentum from an organizational perspective.
So I'm curious where you're providing a lot of thought leadership, you're providing a lot of guidance at the enterprise level. What are some of the topics that you're really asking people to focus on?
Yeah. I mean, I would say without a doubt, the number 1 thing we talk about is phishing. Phishing is such a rampant threat vector in the mobile security space. If you look at a traditional environment, everybody has their scores, right? When you run a phishing exercise, 2%, 3%, maybe 4% people click on it when you're running it through email, right?
Is that what you see? Is it 2 or 3 or 4?
If you look at it, it can be a wide variety based off of the organization. So, let's just say for an example, it's a low percentage point in some regard. If you're in a mobile environment, statistics say, according to our 2019 mobile security, you're about a 56% chance in the mobile environment to click on that link, which is incredible compared to what you would see.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it really is. It is. And why I would say that sometimes that would happen, at least from my personal perspective, is that organizations and employees expect their device to be secure, right? They trust this device.
Right.
And they want to make sure that that device is secure in a big way, right? The other big thing, especially when we're talking about phishing, is really just understanding where it's coming from. And that's one of the big things I like to talk about a lot, is to kind of bring that understanding. According to our index report, email is not the #1 way that phishing gets through in a mobile environment. If you look at social networks, it's probably your #1 way. All the communication tools to the external environment that you can talk to people through, and you can gather links through, collect information through.
Right, simple chat, links,
Exactly.
and so forth.
Facebook Messenger,
Right.
Instagram, some of the more popular known and sometimes non-popular messaging applications and ways to interact at a social level. But I would also say gaming is a huge vector that not a lot of people think about. Some of the different games out there that allow you to communicate people you may not have ever even met before, right? And they have the ability to push information to you, whether it's malicious in nature or it's good communication. Understanding those vectors of what a true mobile device, the ways that you can get and interact with somebody, it's just so traditionally and at a core competency different. It's really important for an organization to understand the entire surface that phishing kind of represents at an enterprise perspective.
Well, I think it's interesting because you come to an event like this and you hear these stories of these sophisticated approached attacks, and there was Mr. Robot, the creator of Mr. Robot, and an expert in there talking about how they tried to make it so authentic with really sophisticated hacks, and yet probably the classics are still the most effective, like a simple phishing attack, which is incredibly unsophisticated.
Agreed.
And yet incredibly effective. And until that can either be, I don't think you'll ever be able to overcome the human behavior of it, because some of them are subtly, are almost unavoidably, you want to click on them. They're just so enticing.
Agreed.
Because it looks like it's coming from your boss or your husband or whatever. But the real trick now is it's not trying to alter human behavior. It's trying to drop the gates after the link has been clicked. Yeah. Inadvertently.
I would say it's two large approaches. First of all, what you're saying resonates with what we've seen in the 2019 Mobile Security Index. Since 2011, 80% year over year, approximately, increase in phishing attempts. Exponential growth from a phishing attack perspective, because it's so easy.
You got to stick with the winner,
man. It's so easy, right? But I would also say when you're talking to organizations, there is a very clear way of both having the technology to be able to prevent against that and having an understanding of what happens when you click on that link and being able to remediate that threat. And at the same point, there's a very, very significant culture enhancement that organizations are going through right now, specific to a mobile device, that a couple of years ago you may have seen it on an enterprise LAN or a desktop perspective, of continuing to train people on how to understand that and how to respond to those in a lot of ways. And it's an exciting time, right? It's an exciting time to educate people, and it's an exciting time to be in front of threat and trying to proactively stop threat at a much larger scale, at a much larger surface.
Well, it's an exciting time to be at Verizon as well, with the oncoming 5G revolution, and certainly, you guys aren't going to become irrelevant. You're becoming more and more relevant every day, and as a carrier, it's really fascinating to see how much you're going to have to deal and how much is going to change. So well done to be moving up the food chain there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's an exciting time. Thanks for swinging by.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, Dan. We're back with more.